Hi everybody, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us this January for a live webinar here on behalf of the TEFL org about New Year's resolutions and maybe becoming an English as a foreign language teacher. My name's Carl. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm one of the trainers here at the TEFL org, so I handle the practical courses here in Northern Ireland where I live. I do this webinar as well most Fridays, not every Friday, but most Fridays. We've been doing them for a couple of years now, so we've got loads and loads and loads of them videos if you need to watch back on lots of different titles. But today we're going to be talking about basically what to do if your New Year's resolution is to become a TEFL teacher. As I said, I'm in Belfast, Northern Ireland. I can see some lovely hellos coming in as well. We've got people coming in from Nashville, Bettendorf, I don't know where that is. Iowa, is that? I don't know. Columbus, Ohio, Atlanta, lots of Americans in, Arizona, Liverpool, Cornwall, Scotland, Austin, Texas. Well, all the Americans are in. Hello. Some people in Brazil, Portugal, Eastern Europe, Hungary, Czech Republic, Czechia, I think is how it's now pronounced, isn't it? It's now called Croatia, Canada. Well, I can't keep up with all the hellos. Hellos. Now, hello, hello, hello. Please, if you have a question about anything to do with English as a foreign language, teaching English as a foreign language, please do put it in a chat. I can see some questions already in there. I will get to the questions at the end of this little presentation I've got about some of the ideas about how to get started and the steps that you need to do. After I finish that, I will dive in on the questions. So the earlier you get your question in, the earlier I will answer it. Alan is monitoring the chat and sometimes he will put a link in to answer your question. So that will probably help you. And then once I get to your question, I will also add my opinion. I've been lucky enough to have taught in many places around the world: China, Vietnam, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Iraq. Was that it for abroad? I think so. Japan, did I say that? Vietnam, China, Sri Lanka as well. I currently work as an EFL examiner, a teacher trainer, and I also work as an online teacher. So, right, let's get going with these questions. Hello, look at all the hellos coming in. Hello, everyone. Right, let's get going with this presentation, sorry. Okay, right, so the first thing I would say to you is if you've woken up on the 1st of January and you're like, I want to be an EFL teacher. This is the year I'm going to be an EFL teacher. My advice to you is don't wait. You know, obviously think it for a little bit, but, you know, start the process, because if you are sort of new to teaching, could take you, you never know, it could take you a couple of months to pass the course, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in a minute. It could take you a couple of months to get a visa, you know, so you're sort of looking, it's January now. Maybe it could be sort of April, May time before you get going. Now, some people, they might bust through their course at 148 miles an hour. They might choose a country where they don't need to get a visa, and it could be by the end of February, for example, they're abroad teaching. Fantastic, that does happen. But for others, it can take a little bit longer. So don't think, okay, I'm just going to wait a couple of weeks and then start, and then, you know, that's a couple of weeks later. So my first advice to you is don't wait, get on it, okay? Get yourself TEFL qualified. So we here at the TEFL org are a TEFL course provider. We give people the courses that allow people to become TEFL trained. Go on our website, tefl.org. You can see lots and lots of different courses that we have on there. But definitely get TEFL qualified. Now, the magic number, you'll see different courses all over the place. The magic number is 120 hours. So when you see jobs advertised, very often they say, apply if you are TEFL qualified and you've done 120 hours of TEFL learning, basically. So that is the magic number, and that is how long it should take you to do the course. Some people do it longer, some people do it shorter, depending on life. But the key one to look for is 120 hours. And the other thing to look for is to make sure that you're doing it with a provider that is accredited, that is a good quality company that get an external body to come in to check everything, to check the tutors, to check the materials, to check the qualifications, all of this kind of thing. 120 hours accredited is the magic number. Our website offers that, tefl.org. But if you can, think about doing longer than 120 hours. I think this is especially true for people who don't have any experience in teaching. I think it's also especially true for maybe people without a degree. They might want to go for a level 5, 168 hour one, because what you got to think is if everybody does 120 hours, it's going to be quite hard to stand out in a crowd. The other thing to think about is, as a teacher, you're expected to keep learning, to keep advancing the whole time. And if you can start that off by saying, look, you know, in your applications, I did the 168 hour course, I learned this, I learned this, I learned this, does make you stand out a little bit. If maybe you're newly qualified, you're you know, new to teaching, that kind of thing can make you stand out. But I'm not saying everybody rush out and pay for the more expensive ones. Look for the 120 hours, but think about doing the longer ones if you can. If you have no experience in teaching English foreign language, or if you were qualified a while back and you've sort of lost your mojo and you want to get back into TEFL, think about doing a practical add-on. So we offer these online. So you spend maybe 3 afternoons, for example, online on Zoom with someone like me, and we do some practice teaching, we answer your questions, all that kind of thing. Or we offer face-to-face courses around Europe, some in America as well, where you spend a weekend again with someone like me and you actually physically teach a class and you actually get some hands-on experience. Again, this can improve your confidence. It can also make you stand out in terms of your application and applying. Don't rush your course. That's what I would say. So some people I know, they're like, whoa, 120 hours, I've done it. Look at that, so quick, it's finished. Woohoo, I've got my certificate, I'm going to go abroad. Fantastic, go for it. Fine if that's what people want to do, but the actual things you learn are useful in interviews. They're useful for putting on your application. So if there's a thing and you're like, actually, this is quite interesting, you know, take your time with it, really take it in, really learn it. It will make you a better teacher. Our courses work for getting people abroad. Our courses work for getting people set up online. But the reason we do these courses is to train teachers. We want to make good teachers. You know, it would be bad for us here at the TEFL org if we just got a load of people out with a certificate. No, what we need is for the teachers to be good and the teachers to be efficient for their students. So if you, by all means, rush through the course if you want to, but be really aware that you have to, you know, that you might need that information in interviews, and you might also, it will also help you in your first term. Okay, so that's the first steps. Now, if you're already qualified, and we do quite often get people that have done their TEFL training, but then they wait a while, or they haven't found a job that they want to do yet, or something like that. What I would say, or if you've already done, or if in the future you are thinking, what do I do after I've done the course? The first step after that I would do would be to get my CV in order. I've done webinars on this Facebook, this YouTube, this LinkedIn page where I talk about what to put in CVs. So if this is what you kind of want to do, look at those ones. I've done sort of hour-long specials just on those, okay? If you are new to teaching, I bet you've actually got more experience than you think. So quite often I get people, oh, I've got no teaching experience. I've got no teaching experience at all. Fine, I get that. And you might not have actually had some EFL experience, but I bet you have got times where you have, for example, in a job, dealt with customers. That would count as experience of dealing with the public. It would count as experience of maybe working with other cultures, that kind of thing. That might be good to sort of highlight on your CV a little bit, just to show that you're happy dealing with people, because EFL is a people game. It's important to be able to deal well with people. Have you put anything in your CVs where you dealt with different cultures, for example? That kind of thing is fantastic. We love, as when I've been recruiting way before I worked for TEFL.org, when I was running language schools, if I had newly qualified teachers, I would look for things where people dealt with the public. I would look for things where people dealt with other cultures, because that is important. Anything where you have trained someone. So I remember my first ever job years ago. I'm not going to give you the total because I'll show you how old I am. I worked in McDonald's. Fantastic, good first job. I loved it, especially for a guy who probably eats a bit too much. And I had to train people up how to make Big Macs. I had to train people up how to work the tills because I've been there for so long. Anything like that that you can put in your CV shows that you can teach. Now, of course, EFL is slightly different, but I'm talking about if you've not got any sort of experience at all, this kind of thing can put in. Right. The practical course will help with this. That should say this. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on there. If you are newly qualified, you do the 120 hours, you've got no experience, and you think, okay, what do I need to do? Maybe add on a practical course. This will really help to boost up your CV and show that you are willing to learn more, to be a good teacher, and to understand how EFL classes work. Okay, right. Now, where should I go is quite often a question that gets asked to me. People say to me, well, okay, I've got my qualification. Where should I go? Now, quite often people have somewhere in mind, absolutely fine, but also people have got no idea. And I always say back to them, and it doesn't help them at all in the slightest, I say, where do you want to? And or they say, well, I quite like Japanese food. Fantastic, that is a great starting point. The world is a big, big place, and within regions, it's very, very different. Do you want to stay in one country? Do you want to travel around? Do you want a beach lifestyle? You know, the world's big. Do a bit of research. Wherever you want to go in the world, there is probably a language school that you could work at. Probably. Research, 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 research. We've got blog pages on our website, tefl.org/blog. If let's, for example, say you want to go to Japan, you type Japan into that, something will come up where people talk a little bit about Japan. YouTube videos are fantastic for this kind of thing. You know, Facebook groups, do some research, find out about all of that kind of thing. Check the requirements. So you want to go to China? Fine. Okay, check. Do you fit the age requirements? Do you need a degree? Is it possible for someone with your passport to get a visa to go to China? You know, check the requirements because they're all quite different. Look at jobs, you know, check on like how much the wage is, check how much, whether you're getting the accommodation involved, are you paying for flights, all that kind of thing. Check that, see if that suits you. Does that sound legitimate? Does that sound good? Okay. Again, all of these kind of things, I've done webinars where I talk a lot more about this, but definitely, you know, if you want more information, look at those webinars, or of course, put the questions in right now. Money. A lot of people sort of forget about money. Think about the money when you're out there. Now, if you see a wage which looks really high, fantastic. But do you need to pay your own accommodation? Do you need to pay your own flights? Do you maybe have to pay for health insurance? That kind of thing. See a wage that's quite low, you think, okay, I don't want that. But does that include flights? Does that include accommodation? All that kind of thing. And then check the practicalities of it, okay? So, for example, can you get a visa in your country? Can you get to the embassy? Who's going to pick you? Is someone going to pick you up from the airport? Do you need to do that kind of thing? All this kind of thing should sort of be in the job descriptions before you apply, all right? Now, I can see some lovely questions coming in, and some lovely countries as well. I promise you I'm going to get to those. I've only got like 3 or 4 more slides here, and then I will get them. I'll get to those questions. Right, so you've got your TEFL qualification, you've sort of you've sort of looked at your CV, you've sort of found a country that you want to go for. The next step is to apply for the jobs. Read the job description. That might sound stupid, but read the job description. When I used to advertise for teachers, the amount of people that used to send in something that I didn't want or would not read, I would sort of say, right, this is a job teaching children, and they would just copy and paste what they sent for a job teaching adults. read the job description, read it again, and obviously keep that in mind whenever you're building, writing your application, whenever you're doing your CV, whenever you're sending your cover letter. The process to apply for a job in China, Japan, Korea, Colombia might be different from how you would apply for a job in your country. So it might not work out that the process is exactly the same. You might read the job description and think, well, I'm not doing that. That sounds crazy. Why do they want me to do that? Maybe that is perfectly normal in that country to do this. For example, send a photo of yourself. A lot of countries don't like that. Some countries really do. Think about yourself. How much do you want to go to that country? How much do you want that job? You might need to just go along with it. You will need to send copies of your documents to a job. I know so many people that are like, oh, nope, I'm not applying for that one. They want a copy of my passport. No, 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 no. Okay, that's important to you, fine. You're probably not, you're going to limit yourself so much to the amount of companies you can work for, the countries you can go to. I don't know how many times I've sent my passport, copy of my passport away. Oh, hundreds, probably, to lots of different places. Copies of my degree, copies of my birth certificate, all that kind of thing. I've sent them out. Okay, what happens with that copy? I mean, I've never had any problems that come back from this, but that is part of the job. It's part of the job. It might take a while, especially if you're going to go abroad. Online, which I will talk a bit more about online in a minute, but if it might take a while for the process to go through. So for example, because I lived in Africa, even though this was many, many years ago, when I go to China and I get a work visa for China, I always need to go and have a hospital checkup. They always make me go and have a hospital checkup. Even though I've had 3 or 4 different work visas for China now, I've got to book that, I've got to get the copies, I've got to get them to the embassy, all that kind of thing. It might take a while for it to happen. Don't think, now look, some jobs you apply, you can be out there in a month for sure. Some jobs it can take 2 or 3 months. So just be aware. Okay. Again, applying for jobs, we've done webinars, me and Alan, on this before. Find them on the Facebook page, find them on the YouTube page, all over. Okay. Now, if you want to work online, the ideas are quite similar. You've got to get qualified. That is the key thing, first of all. Yeah. If you've still got to get that 120-hour certificate. Now, if you especially want to work online, you might want to do extra modules in the practical module where you spend an online couple of days with me or someone else here at the TEFL org learning how to become an online tutor. We have specialized modules where we talk about online teaching. Similar idea, but the key thing is the same: get qualified. I really recommend you work for a company. If online is your future, if this is what you really want, you work for a company when you first start. Lots of jobs on our website where we talk about where companies are advertising, come work for us, teaching English as a foreign language online. Great, apply for them, go for it. At the same time, think about setting yourself up independently as a teacher, online teacher. Long term, it is the best way to make money. Long term, it is the best way to get yourself settled as an online teacher. Again, I've done webinars where I talk about the marketing, where I talk about niches, all this kind of thing, something that's worth looking for and hanging out if that's what you really want to look at. The reason why I say don't just do one is because online companies can be a bit more. Now, look, there are companies out there that are fantastic, but online, there are companies that can sort of stop you working so much if you get a complaint about you. They could stop you working if they lose a load of students, for example, and you're sort of in a bit of trouble there. Okay. What you need to do, if you're working as an independent teacher, you're getting your own students coming in, and you're working for a company, you do have that balance. You do have that security that way if you just work for one company, it might not work, okay? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. That means don't just put everything into one company. Don't put everything into working independently. Try and do a bit of everything. Maybe work for 1 or 2 different companies at the start online. See if one's better than the other. Does one pay better? Is one teaching kids, one teaching adults? Is one teaching Chinese students? Is one teaching Japanese students? Just play around a little bit. They don't know whether you work full time for one and not for the other. The other thing is, you know, if you just work all for one company, you might, as I said, you might find that something goes wrong somewhere along the way, and you sort of don't get lots of money from them. You don't get full-time work. The other thing, which could you see my mind whirring then? Quite often, online companies, they don't start you off full-time right from the start. What they tend to do is maybe say, right, okay, Carl, well done. You've passed all the application process. We're going to start you off next week doing 5 hours a week just to see if the students like you, to see how you go. That's probably not going to pay all your bills. So if you've applied for 2 jobs at the same time, you go work for one company for 5 hours, another one for 5 hours, maybe after a month they put you both up to 10 hours. That's almost full time, but you're working for 2 different companies. That's what I think is the best way for working online, personally myself. If you disagree, please put it in the chat, because that's totally fine to disagree with me. Online, keep at it. You are not going to be full-time independently anytime quickly. Took me a while. Even now I have months where I don't have as much money coming in from my online teaching as I want to. There are months when I have to turn people down, but there are also months where I don't have as much coming in as I want to. Being a full-time independent online teacher, you will make mistakes, you will get frustrated, you will have to deal with time wasters, but if you keep at it whilst working for other things, maybe even working in your local pub, your local coffee shop while you're doing it, you will get there, okay? But you do have to keep at it, all right? Thank you. That is my last slide. Let me just stop that screen there. There we go. Right, let me get to these questions. Thank you so much. Please, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, please put it in the chat. I love it when people agree or disagree. We really are a multicultural bunch today, aren't we? Look at that. We are really from all over the place. Right. Okay, first question. Let me find I'm still having to scroll. Zimbabwe. Love Zimbabwe. Great place. Anna. Hi. Sorry, that was the first question after all the hellos. Right. What is the difference between EFL and a TESOL accreditation? Right. So we have lots of different abbreviations in this field. EFL is English as a Foreign Language. We are TEFL Org, Teaching English as a Foreign Language Organisation. There are also other ones, ESL. There is also this one, TESOL. There are slight differences in each of them, but I think just to make it easier, generally EFL and ESL are the same. Quite often North Americans call it ESL. People in Europe and Australia tend to call it EFL. You know, I think there's arguments to be had that English as a second language is different from English as a foreign language, but I think generally it's fine. And if you want to go for an ESL job and you have an EFL qualification, that's fine. TESOL is slightly different. Teaching English as a second or other language tends to be for people who are in an English-speaking country wanting to learn English. So, for example, I teach ESOL, TESOL, in the local college about half a mile from my house that way. There is an English-speaking country. I live in Northern Ireland, But there are people not from Northern Ireland. I've got people from Ukraine, from Kuwait. I've got people from Iraq. I've got people from Spain. I've got people from Italy in that class wanting to learn English, and that is TESOL. You can do specialised qualifications in TESOL, but very often a college who are advertising TESOL jobs, so these will be jobs that tend to be in the UK, Australia, America, might ask for some specific qualification. The levels for TESOL tend to be quite low, but can be really, really good, interesting classes. Anna, does that answer your question? I hope it does. Christine, hi. How do you get an online teacher job? Basically, get your qualification, get your application right, apply. We have on our website, on the blog page, we've got information about how to get your first online teaching job. I've done webinars about getting online teaching jobs. It's as simple as that. Okay, watch those. Basically, that's what I would do. But if you're qualified and you hit the requirements of the jobs, go for it. Okay. Tanya, hi. You'd like to teach in Portugal and or Costa Rica? Quite different. Can we truly choose where we want to teach? Well, no one's ever marched me to a country and said, teach. I have chosen every single country I've gone to. So, Portugal is obviously very different from Costa Rica. I don't know. There are language schools in Portugal where people are learning English. The market is not as big as Spain, Italy, Eastern Europe. But there are language schools. Now, Costa Rica, there are generally more jobs you see advertised externally. Portugal, you hardly ever see jobs advertised externally. You've sort of got to do a bit of work yourself. You know, go on Google to Lisbon language schools, find one, send them your CV, ask them if they've got any vacancies, fly there. Costa Rica is slightly different. You will see jobs advertised to people abroad, come work in Costa Rica. You know, go for it. Everywhere you go in the world, there will be someone learning English. Now, depending on the size of the market is whether they advertise. For example, if you've got a real burning urge to work in, let's say, Austria as an English as a foreign language teacher, a country where you don't see lots of jobs advertised, and you really want to go to Austria, I would get on Google. I would Google language schools Austria, language schools Vienna. Contact some, see if there's any vacancies. Now, if there's not a big market, they probably won't pay for your flights. You might need to fly out there yourself. But I'm pretty sure every big major city in the world has English as a foreign language classes. Now, you'd have to check whether you would get a job by doing the research. I'm not saying fly to Austria, get some work, for example, but definitely Google could be your friend. Contact, see if that works out for you. But you can choose, yeah, Tanya, for sure. No one's going to march you. Visa requirements and all that kind of thing can make a difference, but there we go. Nicole, hi. Is a bachelor's degree needed for teaching in Japan? Probably, I'm going to say with this. Do you know any place that don't require a bachelor's degree? Are you talking about in Japan or somewhere else? Right, I've done webinars about teaching without a degree. There are places around the world where you can teach without a degree. There are countries around the world where you do need to have a degree. That's all to do with the government of that country deciding whether you want to. It's nothing to do with us, nothing to do with your TEFL qualification. It's all about whether the country that you're going to says you need to have a degree. Right, Japan, you'll see jobs advertised which say, come work for us, you need a degree. That's because you need the degree to get your work visa. However, Japan is slightly different from some other countries in that they offer something called a working holiday visa. And that basically means that someone with a passport that they allow, it's not the whole world, there's only a certain list of passports that they allow, can go to Japan on this working holiday visa, and then when they're there, they can find work. And quite often, if you don't have a degree, there's lots and lots of language schools in Japan. You could go knocking on a language school door and say, hi, look at me, I've got my TEFL qualification. They'll say, have you got a visa to work here? You go, yes, I've got my working holiday visa. You can go and work in the school. So it depends on you, Nicole, whether you need a bit of money behind you in order to do that, because you'd have to pay for your own flights, you'd have to pay for your own accommodation, all that kind of thing. But I know people that have done it, but I would definitely sort of coincide it with the peak times to start working in Japan, which tends to be January and October. There's not a huge amount of work over the summer. There's some, but not a huge amount of time because the universities aren't working. That's what I would do, Nicole. If you've got any questions, please do put that in the chat. But also Japan's amazing. Maisie, do some schools abroad pay for you to do the TEFL course? I don't think, Alan, I don't think they do. Do they? I've not heard that. Right. What happens is some schools abroad have links with some companies, and they might say, do the TEFL course and then come work for our school. Lovely. Sounds great. However, that TEFL course that you do might be linked just to that school. So what you would need to do is that whilst that's great to get you to that one school, you might then find that afterwards you would have to do an accredited TEFL course in order to get abroad. I would be very, very careful about this. If I was you, Maisie, I would do an accredited, good TEFL qualification. I think that would open more doors for you. Okay? Good luck. Ivana, hi. Oh no, so I missed one. Charlotte, sorry. Hi, you've just started your TEFL course. You wonder how you can start to become an online tutor. Okay, so again, I've done webinars just mainly about that, where I can go into lots more detail than I can in the next couple of minutes. You'll see jobs advertised. But the thing that I would say to you, Charlotte, is companies won't take you on until you've got your certificate. That seems to be a big thing. They don't tend to take people on that are already learning. They want you to have finished. So finish first is the first thing. Then maybe set yourself up to be an independent teacher and also just start applying for companies. As I sort of spoke about earlier, but get applying to companies, you'll find work. For sure, Charlotte. And working online and then going abroad is a great way of doing it, I think. Ivana, hi. Non-native. What is a non-native? I'm not sure what that is. Is that someone whose first language isn't English, or is it someone whose English level isn't at a high level? I've done webinars. It kind of annoys me, this non-native thing, because I think anybody with good English is good enough to teach. You have an MA degree in teaching English. I mean, you are more qualified than most TEFL teachers I know. What are the chances to get a work visa, and in which countries? Right, so I don't know where your passport's from, Ivana. You know, you sound Eastern European. The first thing to work is that some countries have restrictions on what passports can apply for working visas for them. It's crazy, I think, but they do. Okay, so you need to work out with whatever passport you have, which ones they work for, which ones you can go and work in. All right. If you've got your TEFL qualification and you've got a degree in teaching English, and you have a high level of English in terms of an IELTS, or in terms of a Trinity, or in terms of a Cambridge test, I think you are a shoo-in to lots and lots of jobs, Ivana. I would especially look for jobs at universities if you've got an MA degree, if you've got a master's. They will absolutely love you, Ivana. So I think the chances are good, but be prepared to say, well, I'm sorry, it's impossible for someone from your country to get a work visa because of the rules that our government have. Okay, Ivana, that's what I would say to you. But I would be, look at me, I've got all of this stuff. My English is amazing, give me a job. I would take you on within a second, Ivana. Good luck. Let me keep going to the next question. Joanne, is it Joanne? Hi. Curious as to why there are age limits for teachers in some countries. So am I, Joanne, because I think it's silly. However, the logic behind it is some countries don't want to take people of an experienced age because they're a bit worried that they might get ill. And what do they do then? Or that it might actually put a bit of a drain on their health service, or they can't get health insurance for them. Tends to be the reason, Joanne. I don't make the rules, but that's unfortunately what some countries think. If you want to go abroad, Joanne, you will find somewhere abroad, especially if you've got an EU passport. Keep looking, keep looking, keep looking. Good luck. Hope it works out. Next question. Is there any more questions? Yes. Laura, is it J Laura? Is that the next one I got highlighted? Yes. Is there an organised need? Organised. Not so sure about organised. For TEFL among Ukrainian refugees in Europe? Yes. Does TEFL have such listings? I don't think we do. Right. Yes. There are Ukrainians all around Europe wanting to learn English. Now, the situation tends to be if Ukrainian refugees are in Germany, they tend to want to learn German. If Ukrainian refugees are in Spain, they tend to want to learn Spanish. If Ukrainian refugees are in the UK, they tend to want to learn English. So it does really sort of depend on the country. If this is something you want to get involved in, and it will be fantastic, you will love it, J. Laura, I would contact local churches. I will contact local religious centres because they tend to know where the refugees are in your town or your country. I would contact them and say, hi, look at me. I've got a TEFL qualification. I want to help volunteer. I bet you they can help you out. The other thing to contact is the local colleges wherever you are. So not as in the government-owned colleges. Yeah, the government-run colleges. I bet you that they know exactly where all the Ukrainian refugees are and they know what to do. Okay, and also Alan has put a very useful link in there, which is probably said a lot better than I just did. Tracy, hi. What is the general job distribution in terms of teaching children, adults, business English? Right. So out of those three, the biggest market is teaching children. I don't really know the percentage, but I would say probably about 50% of all classes of teaching around the world are to kids, probably. The next one is adults, and then within adults you've got loads. You know, English for academic purposes, English for business, English for legal, English for aviation, English for tourism, English for presentations. There's loads of different stuff within adults. Business English is a part of adults teaching that tends to be better paid. Tends to work out quite well, but about 50% of them are kids, and then within kids you've got loads of different levels, age ranges, that kind of thing. I hope that answers your question, Tracy. Yusuf, you have a qualification from 2014 but no experience. I would do a practice. Right, if you've got one of our qualifications, if you've got, or if you got it through someone else, but it's a good quality accredited certificate, I would just spend the money on doing a practical course where you spend the weekend with someone like me, and I would get your confidence up. I would get you teaching at the end of each day. That's what I would do, Yusuf. Go on our website, tefl.org, click on courses. You'll be able to find out more information about the practical elements that we offer. Sagar, hi. You're new here. Hi. And you don't have any experience teaching English, so it seems difficult for me to get a job. What's your advice? The higher level your qualification you can get, the better, Sagar, if you really have no experience. If you, as I sort of said in the presentation, if you've got some experience of training people, of dealing with customers, you have a bit of experience in sort of the world of teaching sort of thing, maybe not English as a foreign language, then that might help. I have done webinars all about teaching with no experience. So I go, what to put in your CV, what to do. But the key thing I think for you would be to do a practical element to the theoretical side of things that would then show that you have some experience. Good luck. Alexandra Jimenez, hi. Can you do a mix of both working abroad, on-site and online teaching at some point? Right. If you go right, a lot of the jobs you see advertised, come work for us in China, come work for us in Japan, come work for us in Colombia, come work for us in Mexico. They will want you to work for them full time. That's why they're paying for the advert. That's probably why they will pay for their flight, pay for your flight, accommodation, maybe that kind of thing. All right. Very difficult to then work abroad on site and do online teaching if you're working full time. Unless you don't want to have any fun in life, Alexander, and you think teaching is fun 24/7. Of course it is. You spend your evenings working online as well for the money. However, some jobs, they might want you to work part-time. They might want, and if that's what they want to do, fine. If you go work for them part-time, quite often these jobs are not advertised so much. Quite often these jobs are for people that are already in country, and then you go work for, let's say, 10 hours a week working for a local language school, 10 hours a week doing your online teaching. It's definitely possible. But if you're going to go abroad and you are going to apply for a job and then they help you out, they will want you to work full time. The other way is possible, but you've just got to put a bit of work in yourself to find a company that will allow you to do that. Okay. Charlotte, where's been my favourite place to teach? Tokyo is amazing. It's an absolutely out of this world city, and I quite often think if I was to go abroad now, I'd go to Tokyo. However, I also absolutely loved working in Iraq. It was absolutely amazing. I really helped the students. The students were amazing. It was really, really valuable teaching. Got a few quid out of it as well because it was oil money, and wherever if you're chasing the money, go to an oil-rich country. So Iraq was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. For fun and for food and all that kind of thing, Tokyo you can't beat. But do you know what? I was out in a remote town in Kazakhstan. Students were amazing. Absolutely loved them. The only place I've ever taught, which I really hated, was Azerbaijan. Even though they gave me this comes from Azerbaijan, this plaque to say that I was amazing, I really didn't enjoy it, and I'm never going back there. Thank you, Charlotte. Great question. I've done a webinar all about my teaching experience, if that's the sort of thing you want to watch. Might bore you to tears. Imogen, yes, it is possible to work at a local language centre in your own country, UK. Would that be a possibility? Yeah. For example, here in a small town that I live in Northern Ireland, there are 2 language schools. I could go work for either of them with an EFL qualification. If you're in a bigger city, Manchester, Liverpool, or like in Dublin, or if you're in New York, or if you're in Sydney, or if you're in Auckland, there will be loads of language schools around you that are probably crying out for people. Different rates of pay depending on whether you've got a degree, whether you've got a master's, all that kind of thing. But I know people that work without degrees who just have a TEFL qualification in those schools. Google is your friend there, Imogen. Language schools Belfast, language schools Edinburgh, language schools Manchester, language schools Newcastle, or ESOL courses Manchester, ESOL courses. Contact the school. Hi, this is me. Can I have a job, please? Good luck. I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to get through the last few. These questions have been amazing. Peter, what are the practical advantages to teaching abroad? Well, I don't know if there's any practical advantages. It's for the fun, isn't it, Peter? Like, if you want to, you know, living in Tokyo is very different from living in Belfast. It's very different from living in London. You know, I'm looking outside. It's pouring with rain. It's 5 degrees where I am right now. It's not like that in Bangkok, probably. It might be pouring with rain in Bangkok, but it's definitely not 5 degrees. That might be what you want to do, Peter. I don't think there's any practical advantage. Now, the other thing you might want to think about is being a digital nomad. I think we're going to do a webinar about that soon. Portugal, I think, does the digital nomad. Thailand does a digital nomad visa, all that kind of thing. But I don't think there's any practical advantages. It's just more about having a bit of fun in life, Peter, and seeing a bit of the world, I think. Right, I think we are just down to the last couple of questions. Alan, let's highlight a question, Alan, for me. Julia, could I recommend some books for beginner EFL teachers, please? Well, if you do one of our courses, you know, that's what you, we will set you up. You don't really need to go buy a book. However, if you want to, if you want to learn a bit more, you could go down the route of getting a good textbook. So something like a New English File, Headway, something like that, which will sort of show you how lessons work. You might want to go down the route of buying a book called what's it called? An Introduction to English Language. This is a good one. So you could get something like that one. That sort of thing could help you. You could get a book such as that one, A Student's Introduction to English Grammar. Those kind of things help. But I think if you do one of our courses, do that first. And then wherever you go and work in the world, they should have a suite of textbooks like that to help you. The key thing first is just to get one of our courses done. Okay? Evie, I just want to answer that one, and I think that's the last question because I think that's a really good question. Evie, is it? Or Evie, I don't know how to pronounce it. Evie Hughes. Teaching abroad over the age of 35. You're so old, Evie. Over 35, there's no chance for you at all in life in TEFL. None whatsoever. The world is yours, Evie. At the age of 35, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Where have you always wanted to go, Evie? They will take you at the age of 35, I promise you. You are not too old. I'm in my 40s. You will be absolutely fine. Okay? Any tips though? Just enjoy it. Companies like taking people on who aren't necessarily in the early 20s because they tend to, not always, but they tend to have put their fun days behind them and they tend to be slightly more serious. Not always. I know some 50-year-olds that can party hard, but you know, that tends to be it. Good luck. I'm really sorry if we didn't get to your question this evening. And there are I can see so many amazing ones there, right? If you have a burning TEFL question, please message it to us. If there's a question you wanted me to answer but I did not, because I've only got an hour here, you send it to our Facebook page. You go on our website and you do the chat with us function at the bottom. Send a message. They will pass on the message. If someone who is monitoring the chat can't answer it, they will always pass the message on to me and I will answer it. I promise. We have also done loads and loads of webinars on a range of lots of different topics where I hopefully might answer your question in a bit more detail. We also do this Q&A weekly, if not every week, then every other week at least. Okay. We also have a fantastic podcast which I'm going to be recorded for next week about working abroad as an EFL teacher. Really worth downloading that and having a look. If you go on our website and you go to the blog page, tefl.org/blog, there's also loads and loads of information on that. Okay. Thank you very much for tuning in today. You're busy people and we really appreciate it. Please, if you didn't like the webinar, tell us why. If you did like the webinar, please tell us why. Like it, all that kind of thing, because I'm quite vain and I like it when people give thumbs up. Have a good weekend wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much.